AIS Play ความบันเทิงระดับโลกทุกที่ทุกเวลา
ส่งต่อความมั่นใจสู้ไปด้วยกันนะครับ
meters backstroke. We've got the reigning world record holder going in those heats of the men's 200-meter breaststroke, and we shall round off the program with 2 heats of the women's 4x200-meter freestyle relay, and those 2 relays so far have been absolute crackers. So the conditions here have been pretty much as they have been over the opening 2 days. High humidity, pretty warm here in what is, well, we're neither entirely indoors nor out. The venue is open at all 4 sides. We have a roof. There you see it, 28 degrees. That's not bad for just short of 9 o'clock in the morning. The humidity a little bit higher than it has been thus far. And a very decent smattering of locals coming in to watch 90 minutes or so of qualifying heats on this 3rd morning. Well, he's certainly been one of the stars so far from that Chinese team. This is the call room, and that, if not unique, pretty close to it experience that all competitors, not just in swimming, but in all the other disciplines here at these Asian Games have to go through. The whole call process, and that's all part of the learning process. Certainly looking forward. I mean, this is an event which stands on its own 2 feet, Drew, but looking forward to the Olympic Games. That's where many of these athletes competing here are targeting 2 years' time in Tokyo. So our first event is the women's 50 meters backstroke, and we have 3 heats. And the leading 4, if we look at the Asian rankings in 2018, the leading 4 in this discipline, all from China. Indeed, the top 15 are either from Japan or China, following on from that theme, which has been the way things are over the course of a couple of days, and as Drew mentioned, very much the pattern of recent not only Asian Games but Asian Championships. So the flags are out over the pool. It is the 50-meter backstroke. And here are the athletes coming to their blocks for the first of the 3 heats. The athlete that perhaps catches the eye here, there, Natsumi Sakai of Japan, who's clocked 28.33 this year for this discipline. A qualifying time coming in, 27.82. So just going from the far side, Sampatana Chamberlain of Laos in 1, Khan of Pakistan in 2, Kochkarobez Pakistan in 3, Sakai Japan in 4, Shin Korea in 5, Wong of Macau in 6, Bayer of Mongolia in 7.
Well, we're right into the racing as only 3 heats, and they've seeded them, of course. 50 back we saw yesterday for the men. It's exactly the same for the women. Important little skills, got to be right, small errors. Then you have a big magnification of these, but you can see in lane 4, absolutely supreme. Sakai, head steady, and a very nice finish at the end of her 50, but a comfortable swim in 28.25. No real challenge, no problems. It's just a shakeout swim in the morning of day 3. If you've had to wait until now to get your event, then obviously you've done a little bit of training to keep the fitness level up, but nothing like getting that first swim under your belt and doing it as nicely and as successfully as that. To get first place, ensuring one of these valuable 8 lanes in tonight's final.
It may well be something of a pipe opener, but she has clocked her fastest time of the calendar year. Not as fast as the time that she brought into the event, 27.82. That clock within the qualifying period, although not in this calendar year. But Natsumi Sakai, certainly one of the medal contenders when we move on to the final later in the day. Big margin of supremacy there. Almost a second over Shin of Korea. Korea second on the medals table at the moment. I say second, sorry, third. But they are the best of the rest with just 2 bronze medals. So Liu Zhang of China going here in lane 4. She is the world number 4 in 2018. Alongside her, Park of Korea. Liu has clocked 27.40. To give that some sort of perspective, the game's record 27.45 set by Gao of China, and that was obviously at these games, but 8 years ago.
The backstrokers over recent years, of course, have been helped by a technical development on the start. There's a little ledge that gets draped over the starting block. The top of the ledge level with the surface of the water. And this is to help stop slipping on these electronic pads, because that often happened. It doesn't hurt the swimmer's feet, it's so thin, and the material is gentle on the bottom of the feet. Watch for higher starting. The back arch and dive, a difficult gymnastic skill. Underwater, butterfly leg kick, taking it out only as far as 15 meters, and then into the stroke. High turnover on the 50 back in 4. Liu just showing in the white hat and bright orange costume there on the left in lane 4. The golden lanes where you would expect the seeded heats to come through. And there again, under the flags, checking where you are. A little rollover on the arm, and a nice strong finish from Liu to take the second of these heats.
So 27.83. I think it's fair to say that when we get later in the day, the game's record of 27.45 will be under threat. So there is confirmation of that. 27.83 for Liu. Park of Korea, 28.69. Wong of Hong Kong, China coming through in third with 28.94. Just a reminder, it's the leading 8 times that will progress to the final, which is the first event up in tonight's program. And this is the third of those heats. It's the world number 1, Fu Huanhui, going here in lane 4, a swimmer who has been very, very close to 27 seconds, bringing in her qualifying time. This is certainly a discipline where the Chinese will hope to tilt the balance of the medal table in their favour at the start of this evening's programme. First of all, Fu must go through what she hopes will be the formality of gaining qualification.
Starter holding them a long time, waiting on the crowd to go quiet. Underwater, first to break in 3. It's Ao of Hong Kong. Fu in the white hat now, Absolutely, at 25, establishing a very strong lead. You can see it's a little bit bouncy this morning, head steady, but a lot of drive of the hands into the water on entry means that you're getting a more up and down action. Not a very good finish at all from the top seed. 28.12. For me, it looked very rusty. A shakeout swim right enough. Fu Yanhui. And if you watch this finish, you'll see that she was just not concentrating at all. There's the lift at the start, the back arch, streamline on the entry, the butterfly leg kick. You're allowed 15 meters, then the head must break before that 50-meter mark. Head nice and steady, but here gets a little bit tied up. There's the left arm very tight to the wall. You can see she had to roll over and bend the elbow a little bit just to make sure of registering her finish. So these little things are very important. And at 28.12, well, if she doesn't swim a little bit faster and finish better, she's certainly going to have company in the challenge for the medals tonight.
Well, Liu in that second heat, the fastest, the only inside 28 seconds. But significantly, the two Chinese swimmers at the top there, you can see 27.83 and 28.12. Natsumi Sakai, the winner of that first heat, going through there in 28.25. So the form book rather suggests that China will dominate this event, and they have the fastest two qualifiers, though perhaps a little bit of a surprise that Fu, the world #1, not apparently at her best there. Now moving straight on to here, the ultimate sprint event, the men's 50 meters freestyle. This is the first of 7 heats. To give some sort of perspective here, the fastest in the world, Ben Proud of Great Britain, 21.11, set in Glasgow in the last couple of weeks at the European Championships. So that is just how long these swimmers have to decide their fate here this morning. A very full field with 7 heats. It'll be eyeballs out.
Everybody loves a 50. So many people can do it.
Just 4 swimmers in this first heat. None of them come here with a qualifying time, which is why they go in this first heat. As we move through, the heats are seeded. But Nazari in 3 of Afghanistan, Buarish, Saudi Arabia in 4, Qatari, India in 5, and Kaman Walid of Kuwait in lane 6.
Well, classic dive start into the stroke immediately. You can see very strong leg kick, and apart from lane 3 there, Nazari of Afghanistan, we've got a nice race for heat 1. It's bubbling already, the 50 free. A little bit splash and dash. And what you have to try and remember is that image as you go through to the top heats. In the tight finish, Qatari of India gets the victory, but at that kind of time, it shouldn't trouble anybody further up the field.
So 23.83, the time there for Qatari of India. To give you some sort of idea of the entry times that have been brought to this event, Katsumi Nakamura, who is the Asian #1, the world #15, goes in the final heat here. He's clocked inside 22 seconds in 2018. A 23.83 there for Qatari. He would have to wait and see how the other 6 heats go. So this may prove indeed to be the slowest of the heats, with the entry times here around about 25 seconds, 26. And Thavong there of Lao in lane 3, the Nepalese in lane 4, that's Sirish Gurung. We are going to zip through these heats this morning. The program should last somewhere around about 90 minutes. It's one of the attractive elements of swimming, which for those of us who have a fairly close association with other codes at these Asian Games, momentum tends to build really when we get to those final series in the evening. 7 titles up for grabs tonight. One of them will be this, the men's 50 free. So heat 2, moving to their blocks.
Starter with a long hold again. Now I want you to visualize that picture of splashing and dashing and everything out the water. You want to keep your limbs in the water as much as possible to apply the force. A good swim in lane 7 from Khan of Pakistan, leading them. But again, it's holding the breath for a long time. Very many strokes in that 50. The time at 25.5, that brings his personal best time down, and that's good. The qualifying times are from over such a long period that they're a very, very rough guide at best, and especially in the 50, where you have to spot it right. Very slow start there in lane 6 from Ali of Moldova. And you can see there the entries rather bashing and thumping the water rather than, as you will see at the top end of the swim, a much more elegant and controlled entry. Good strong leg kick and great effort. The change in the 50 freestyle for men these days is that the very strong athlete can have a straight arm pull and a straight arm recovery. There's also at the top end, you've got to look at the breathing patterns. Some try to do the whole 50 on one breath. That's difficult. Strong for the muscles, but difficult, obviously, for the lungs.
Well, Mohammed Khan will be very encouraged by his performance there, 25.50. It won't be progressing to the final. We can be certain of that. So the tempo just stamps up a little bit. The two Qataris there in lanes 3 and 4. The entry times here in the 24s and 25s. So once again, likely to be short of the quality that will be good enough to get through to the final. But each of these men has their own individual battle against lifetime bests and progressive improvement towards those Olympic Games in 2 years' time. The fastest of them seated in the middle there, Noah Al-Khelaifi of Qatar. He's a 24:40 swimmer, or at least that is his entry time here. Alongside him, Issa Al-Adawi of Oman, an entry time of 24.62. When you see that in perspective with that world-leading time of Ben Proud, there's quite a lot of blue water between Proud and the sort of performances that we're likely to see in this, the third heat.
Over 50, a few hundreds means a big difference, especially with the limbs, the long arms of the top swimmers.
So look towards the middle lanes, perhaps to emerge in front. And over there in lane 4, that is Al-Khelaifi of Qatar. Moving strongly and also having a good swim here. Down in lane 7, it's Seo of Korea. And it is Seo of Korea coming through here by almost a body length. It's a good swim from him, 22.88. Well, that goes to show, doesn't it? One or two of those entry times, rather misleading, but CO 22.88. That is the fastest we've seen so far this morning.
Yes, Martin, it's a very strong swim, and holding the breath in the last sort of 15 metres. You can see their head down, going for the wall. Of course, he's 28, so you're talking about a strong, mature athlete with the strength to take on a 50 and get down to the 22 point. It's a quality swim. It'll certainly shake up the seeded heats that we're about to see in a couple of swims.
So huge margin of supremacy there for Siu in that third heat. Let's see how things go in the fourth. The fastest entry time here going to Wong of Hong Kong, China. There in lane 4, comes here with 23.65. But as we've just seen there with Seo of Korea in the third heat, don't read too much into the entry times, although they do play, obviously, a pivotal role in the swimmers seeding through the heats.
But you could have had 15 months since they did that time, and they could have moved into a strong land program, which sprinters need, and developed, obviously, as Seo did, a bit of talent.
So the swimmers going to their blocks here for this, the fourth heat of 7 in the men's 50 free. Drew described it as the splash and dash. Well, this really is the ultimate. And they splash and dash just that little bit quicker than they do in every other event.
Much cleaner dives now in the centre of the pool. An excellent start from Newling of Thailand, and he's holding. But look at the swim in lane 3. Barbar, Lebanon, just stroking through there in the field. But it's all going to be tight at the finish as Newling comes back into the fray in the last 15. Cool and calm on the finish, almost with the head up and a short reach to the wall. But Andrew Newling, winner in 23.48. Again, with only heats in the morning and finals at night, it's very difficult to get one of those 8 lanes, even at 23 low.
Yeah, it might be interesting to see Newling here, who overhauls his rivals, but seemed to have slightly mistimed into the wall there, slightly long reach. I know that the slow motion cameras do tend to slightly accentuate, sometimes unfairly, on the swimmers. But Newling's time, 23.48, that more than half a second slower than Seo in the previous heat. So Nakao there of China, going in lane 4, Japan I should say, going there in lane 4. He's swum 22.36 this year, although it's worth making the point, he's actually just the 7th fastest Japanese swimmer this year. Now, of course, he could be, or could have prepared specifically for this event. His entry time, 22.15, significantly the fastest coming to this, the 5th of the 7 heats.
Well, Japan have had their national championships, and then they prepared for the Pan Pacs, which were only 10 days ago, maybe. And this is now an opportunity for the first of the Japanese swimmers to put himself in place. The swimmers 22.1 out to 23.5 in the times. So it's going to be a tighter field, and this is now the first of the seeded heats. So you'd expect to see closer swims, tighter finishes, and therefore all those little skills, the dive, underwater, breakout, and certainly the finish, have all got to be very sharp on a one swim effort. Coming out here in lane 2, of course, Joseph Schooling, the Olympic 100 flyer who swam a 1:46.6 in the relay last night. To see what he's like on the 50. Freestyle's not his main discipline, of course. You can see the crab-like swimming in 5. Caddy of India getting him there to the front. But now comes the test in the final 10. Caddy gets the touch. Nakao very tight. And Varakin of Kazakhstan taking a nice third place. 22.4. It's the strength, it's not the technique for the Indian that caused the victory.
Well, that is the fastest time we've seen so far this morning. CO in heat 3, who swam, well, it was an entirely lone swim there, 22.88. But we do have the first 3 in this heat, the fastest of the morning. So you can see how when we move to these seeded heats, just the tempo just clicks up a gear. 22.43, Takada, Nakao there of Japan, 22.62, and Varakin of Kazakhstan, 22.72. Fastest 3 times of the morning so far.
Yeah, but that puts 5 on 22. There are only 8 lanes in the final, with 2 heats to come, with 22s listed. So it's going to be disappointment for some this morning on what looks like a very good sprint time. And that's why getting your hand to the wall first is so vital.
So here we are, the penultimate heat. Yu Hexin goes for China here, a qualifying time of 22.14, and he knows that he will have to produce something, if not in the low 22s, certainly the right side of 22.5, if he is to make it through to the final. So there can be no letting up for any of these 8 swimmers in this, the 6th of the 7 heats. So Carter 22.43, Nakao 22.62. We have 5 swimmers inside 23 seconds. We have 2 heats remaining.
Stronger dives, longer distance, breaking into the stroke. In lane number 4, the favourite Yu goes 8 strokes without breathing, puts in another challenge now from Cheong in 3, and over in 2, Lin up with the swim, but coasting into the finish a little bit, grabbing for that wall. Yu takes the victory, 22.21, spotted the danger of the early seeds and also that 22.8 by CO, and puts in a very good 50 in his heat.
So the first 5 all inside 23. So the bar being raised in terms of qualification. This the fastest swim we've seen so far this morning, coming from Yu, the Chinese. And still just a little bit, I think, in hand. A relative term, but coasting just a little bit through the last few strokes.
Yeah, a little bit bouncy. Can see him there going up and down a little bit, and that's the application of a downward force at the entry and the early part of the arm pull. You'd like to get that in and straight back, or hold the water at that point. But 22.21, he spotted the danger, Martin.
So the Asia number 1, Katsumi Nakamura of Japan, here in lane 4. Has broken 22 seconds this calendar year, 21.87. His entry time, 22.12. Also look out for Kenneth Toh. We've seen him in action throughout the week. The Hong Kong China swimmer here in lane 5. An entry time for him of 22.46.
Well, the advantage for the final heat is that they have clocked the times in the previous heats. They know exactly what The target is, it's all about now performance. Nakamura, the Japanese record holder, with 21.87 to his credit. 22 low will be good enough.
22.88. We saw Seo just sprinting down the pool a bit earlier for Korea. He, at the moment, the 8th fastest time, 22.88.
Well, Seo's going to be very disappointed because somebody's going to go under 22.88 in this field. You can see in 5 a tremendous start from Kenneth Toe. Really electric on the reaction time. In 2 up for the first 35 metres. And already Nakamura just cruising in here in 2nd place. His Toe looks strong in the final heat. It's Toe of Hong Kong who's going to be smiling the widest with that 22.38. Not the fastest time, but getting the hand to the wall in front of Nakamura, that's a scalp worth taking.
Well, Yu of China will move into one of those 2 golden lanes in that 6th heat with his 22.21. Not as fast there from Kenneth Toe of Hong Kong, China, but he'll get a good draw. Toe's time 22.38, so he will occupy the other middle lane in the final. As for Nakamura, well, Nakamura coming through there, but not taking that heat. So Nakamura will have one of the more outside lanes when we get to that final coming up this evening. But a good swim there from Kenneth Toe. Vastly experienced now, 26.
Big smile from Toe, of course, with a 22.38. Sure, that'll be a personal best, might even be a national record. Nakamura 22.50. Good at the start, little bit stiff in the middle of the swim, and I think he recognized he was never going to catch Toe. Now the qualifiers. Yeah,
so there you can see it. Nadibalek Musin of Kazakhstan, 22.63. He is the slowest of the qualifiers. He was 3rd in that final heat, led by Yu of China, 22.21.
What a classic 50 with the middle 4 lanes all in danger, all on 22s. That makes it a tight field. Be a cracking final this evening.
Just 2 heats here for the women's 400 metres individual medley. Yui Ohashi of Japan goes in the 2nd heat, a recent gold medalist at the Pan Pacific Championships. She is the fastest in the world. They're going in this 1st heat. We have Thi Nguyen of Vietnam, who's actually the fastest non-Japanese swimmer in the 2018 rankings in Asia. Yes, I say non-Japanese. You do have to sort of reinforce the point as well that we also throw the Chinese into the mix there. We do have a handful of Japanese who are very, very fast at this event, but we can see, just for some perspective, Katinka Hoshu of Hungary, holder of the world record, swam that at the Olympic Games in Rio, 4:26.36.
Well, the long medley for women. All skills are on display and a chance to get a moment or 2 to savour each one with 100 fly, 100 back, 100 breast, 100 freestyle. Start not critical, but it's important not to put too much energy into that first 100 butterfly. Nice and long, nice and steady. If that's part of your strength, yes, you have to go for it, but you've got a lot of swimming to come after this. Going out early, Shimizu of Japan with a very tidy butterfly. Really lovely action, beautiful flow, nice and flat. The head maybe picking up a little bit high on the stroke. And you can see there, Nguyen, she's struggling a little bit to get a nice flowing rhythm on the butterfly. And it's the Japanese at the 100 who leads.
62.06 for Sakiko Shimizu at the end of the first discipline there. Her entry time 4:37, but she has swum in the 4:36s in this calendar year. And there in lane 5, Shimizu opening up an advantage of getting on for 2 lengths at the moment. And Nguyen of Vietnam alongside her in lane 4.
Now, what I like about Shimizu is that she's got a nice positive tempo on the stroke. You can see there's no slow action or a break in the arms. They're just turning over nice and quick. You can see the long, slow backstroke of the danger, Nguyen. And she'll have a strong second half if she's coming to 4:36. But traditionally with the long medley, it's a strong, easy swim in the morning, and then a big drop at night as you get into a race with your competitors for the medals.
And Nguyen, just a hint there that she may have been starting to close a little bit on that second 50 of the backstroke. So into the breaststroke, and it is still Shimizu out in front by about a length and a half from Nguyen, who's maybe just picking up the tempo just a little bit now. It's a significant advantage that these two have over the rest at the moment.
And this is really just a practice swim, Martin. You know, they know that if you're in the top 4 here, I mean, you only have to drop a few swimmers from the 2 heats. And at their level, it's about practicing 1 or 2 things. They might even have very small individual targets within the stroke, or picking up on a little error that they've had in training, and they want to make sure it's not going to happen in the competition. So it's really just a quiet, steady rehearsal for the top swimmers, and then into the serious business when they get to the finals.
Yes, there are just a dozen swimmers over the 2 heats, so we are only losing 4. Coming through at the moment in 3rd place. Well, it's very tight between Hamatani of Indonesia in lane 7 and also Yang of China in lane 3. But it's still Shimizu of Japan going now into the final leg of the 4, and she's got a 2 body length lead over Nguyen.
Really not that important this morning. It's about getting a good swim, feeling strong and confident. Shimizu, of course, would like to join Ohashi in the final, and Ohashi with a 4:30.8, she's way out on her own. I mean, if you were going to put your money, that's the safest bet we've seen in the program so far. Very difficult to get down there. I mean, the top swimmers are only swimming round about the 4:33s, 4:34s in finals. So you could expect this time, you know, to be out in the late 30s, early 40s this morning. You can see Shimizu just cruising home there. Nothing in the leg kick. There's no racing going on. There's no danger. She's almost waiting on Nguyen joining her at the pad. A very comfortable, nice performance and clever swimming this morning. 4:45.
Yeah, so a good 11-12 seconds out of the times that we may see certainly win the final this evening. But there is the winner. It was very tight indeed for 3rd and 4th places, and they've given it to Yang of China, 4:53.56. Well, I mentioned to you a couple of moments ago that we're just losing 4 swimmers. I can tell you we're actually only losing 3 because we've had a withdrawal in the 2nd heat. We will have a gap in lane 6. But I guess the swimmers with aspirations of winning medals tonight, Drew, whilst it's quite clear from the times this is just a glorified rehearsal, they will have half a mind or half an eye to ensuring that they are at least in lanes between 3 and 6.
Well, they have to check their fitness. I mean, especially, as I said, the Japanese, not all of them would have swum in the Pan Pacs. There's confirmation of that 4:45 and 4:47. I mean, you can see the gap to 53 and even just in that field. And as you said, we've only got a few swimmers in the next. And it's all down to your mental preparation. For me, I would be going quite hard, good rehearsal, nice long swim out, swim down in the pool facility that's available, something to eat, some rest, and then come back for the final tonight. But if you go too slow in the heats, it can always be difficult then to get yourself up in the final, even although there's that tension and the desire for medals. Because you've swum slow and you don't feel too great, you know, you have a long way to pick it up. So good rehearsals, what's now encouraged.
Well, there is Yui Ohashi, we saw for a moment there, wearing the dark hat in lane 4, the world #1. On both the 200 and the 400-meter individual medleys at the recent Pan Pacific Championships. She's a 4:30 swimmer.
Can you imagine the questions that are going through our mind, you know, when you see a 4:45 leading and it's your teammate and you've got a 4:30 in the bag, you know, what do you do?
But I guess in this particular discipline, the first of the 4, the butterfly, there is a point where you can only relax so much. If you're of this quality, it can be that much tougher, can't it be, to swim that little bit slower?
Yeah, you're right, especially on 200 fly. The 100's not so bad. You can see there nice long strokes from Ohashi, quite high in the water, but very relaxed. Again, if you're kicking too hard here, you're going to feel it in the breaststroke. And you need to kick on the butterfly just to keep that body flat at the back and help that excellent double arm power that you get in the peculiarity of a butterfly stroke.
So Ohashi clearly swimming well within herself. So she's the first onto the backstroke leg. Alongside her there in lane 3 is Zhou of China. Now, in terms of entry times, they are separated by 13 seconds. We do have to stress that from time to time those entry times can be a little bit misleading. But I would say in terms of quality, those entry times where Ohashi is concerned just reinforce the dominance that she will have when we get to tonight's final. There simply, at the moment, is no better medley swimmer than this woman. Leading the world rankings, dominance at the recent Pan Pacific Championships.
Well, there are one or two that are better, but they haven't swum this year. Again, it's a difficult year. It's a transition. You've come off the Rio Olympics, you're relaxed and you build, you do your training and you do your competitions. But from here on in, your eyes are on the prize in Tokyo. Very relaxed backstroke, just cruising through here. This is where we get a real chance to see the strength of Ohashi. Look at that beautiful long breaststroke. She wants to do the least number of strokes per 50. So it means that the legs have got to work to get that drive. There's not a lot of forward power from the arms, but beautiful. Both swimmers from Japanese are finely built athletes. They're very neat in their technique, as you often find from Japan, and it's exaggerated by the women against the men. But so precise, so relaxed, so easy. And when you can do it that way, and you've got Zhou of China really working harder in the white hat there, you can see much faster tempo, really trying to close that gap. It must be soul-destroying when you're in that position.
I think it's probably worth making the point, but looking forward to those Olympic Games. Now, swimming is always one of the marquee events when we get to the major games, but because of the relative success that Japan have over global sport, it is the swimming team who will largely come to define success or failure for Japan in those home Olympics, because they don't have a great squad of track and field athletes, but it's rather different in the pool. And this is one of those athletes who will, over the course of the next 2 years, really will be thrust into the spotlight, I would have thought, at home.
Quite so, because, you know, the history of swimming in Japan is just phenomenal. When you go right back in the history books, it was Japanese breaststrokers and butterflyers. Again, the tough events where they were successful. And although they had a dip round about the 70s and late 60s and early 80s, they've come strong again in the 90s and the noughties. But you can see just how relaxed Ohashi is against the strong 6-beat leg kick. But June also knows the business, and although she'll get up on the shoulder, it's a very, very comfortable and relaxed performance this morning. But professional job, 4:42. She'll know she could do that. She's done it to get into lane 4 and make sure she's going to head this final up.
So a 4:30 swimmer making 4:42 look just as easy as you might expect. Ohashi in 1, Zhou coming through in 2nd place, and the Korean Kim in 3rd. All 3 of those will move through to the final later on.
Not even breathing heavy, Martin. There's that wonderful flexibility in the shoulders from Ohashi. Look how high the hands are and how precise that entry is. The entry's a little bit wide for me. That's a very personal coaching point. But when you're so wide like that, it creates resistance in that U shape between hands and shoulders. There, you'd almost think she was swimming down at the end of a 400 individual medley. Such is the dominance of this swimmer at these championships. Strong support from the non-swimmers this morning. Always get a wave from the victorious Japanese.
So the first 2 there inside 4:43. Kim 4:48.59. They're in 3rd place. So we are just losing 3 of those swimmers looking forward to the final, which does illustrate what today was about for the leading contenders. Ohashi, predictably the fastest this morning, but barely getting out of 2nd or 3rd gear. And the 8th of the qualifiers from Hong Kong, China, Lam, there with a time of 4:58.54. So the qualification, they're pretty lenient in all honesty. So we have a reigning world record holder going in one of these 3 heats of the men's 200-meter breaststroke. Pei Watanabe goes in the 3rd of the heats. There's the first heat, the fastest entry time coming from Qin of China in lane 4. There you can see Watanabe's time set right at the start of 2017. So Qin there in China, of China, 2:09.40, his entry time here.
Day 3, Martin, sees the entrance of the breaststrokers into the programme. The 200, the starting event. They've been seeded, and Qin at 2:09.40, 3rd fastest entry time coming into these Asian Games. The 200 breaststroke has been a very interesting event over the last well, the last 6 years, but certainly since 2014, when the Scottish swimmer went 2:07.8 to win in a surprise victory at the 2014 Commonwealths. Then everybody started to come down to 2:07s.
Give us an idea of the evolution of this event, because I'm sure any sharp-eared listeners will notice that you're a Scot. It was a Scot who won this title 42 years ago at the Olympic Games in Montreal, David Wilkie.
42, yes.
What times was he clocking back in those days?
You're testing me, are you, Martin?
No, no.
He swam 2:15.11. He was
Well,
the only
go.
gold medal that was non-American in the 1976 Olympics in Montreal.
Was it John Henkin, I think, wasn't it, in second place? Even
Yes,
though I remember
well, he
that.
won the 100, and then Wilkie came and took the 200. That 2:15.11 sat there for many a year. And then it came down to 2:13s, 2:11s, and then it crept down to 2:09s, 2:08s. And then there was a breakthrough in 2:07s. And Watanabe swam in Rio, didn't swim that well, made the final, and then went home a couple of months later in January of the next year. Surprised everybody with a superb 2:06.67. And the main challenger now, of course, is a European, young Chupkov of Russia, going 2:06.8 at the European, set the European record with that time. But that's exactly what it is about. It's about getting down now to the single figures. 2 minutes, 2:13, very positive in the first swim. Although he's in a 2:09, 2:13 and winning the first heat so convincingly, that's a good rehearsal. Very difficult, the 200 breaststroke. It's a very tough event, very hard on the legs. Really got to be in top condition to survive the 200 breaststroke. You can see the later swimmers, how difficult it has been and how low they are in the water at the end. Keane took it out from the beginning. Again, good practice, good professional approach, and should build the event towards a very strong final tonight.
Yes, and of course we know in swimming it's a test of all four limbs, but I guess of the four strokes, this is the ultimate test of the legs, isn't it?
Indeed.
So, King of China coming through for that, 2:13.51. Kim of Korea coming through in second place, more than 3 seconds behind the Chinese. But Kim setting the standard there.
Very difficult for breaststrokers to pitch their swim. So that was good.
So Yasuhiro Kosakai there of Japan in lane 4. He is the seeded athlete here. So from the inside, that's Kotspaya of Mongolia in lane 1. Yang of Hong Kong, China is in lane 2. Mustafin of Uzbekistan is in 3. Koseki, there he is, the Japanese in lane 4. Cho of Korea in 5. Chow of Macau, China in 6. Abdul Rahman of Qatar will be closest to the camera in lane 7.
Koseki, 2:08 man in the record books, his personal record books. Now, 200 breaststroke, look for long and strong. Again, In the early stages, that's what you're looking for. When it comes to the last 50, you can shorten up, you can go for the sprint finish, you can go for the prize, but in the early stages, if you take too many strokes, you really are going to feel it in that last 30 meters. So you're looking for a very strong leg kick, but eking out every centimeter on that drive before you pick it up on the hands, bring the hands in, and then get into the next stroke cycle. And you can see that's exactly what Kosecki is trying to do in lane 4. Slightly faster turnover from Mustafin in 3 of Uzbekistan and Cho of Korea.
Yes, you can see the long, long stroke there of Kosecki. There you go, just seems to remain there just that little bit longer than many of his rivals, which allows him to increase the tempo. We won't necessarily see it, I suppose, in this morning's heat. 2:13.51, the benchmark set by Kin in that first heat, but it is Kosecki of Japan leading by, what, a little more than half a length, something like that.
And what's important is the timing of the stroke. If you wait too long after that long drive, the body is going to sink into the water and is going to go slightly vertical because the weight's in the legs. So you need to pick it up just at the right moment. You can see a late challenge coming in 5 from Cho, but Kosecki just cruising through with that long stroke. He doesn't need to pick up a sprint finish because he knows he's going to get to that pad first, and that's all he needs to do to get into the final. Yes, you'd like to be in the middle lanes. However, it's about making the final first, getting into the center of the final second, and then checking out your swim. A 2:12.7, again, nicely pitched off a 2:8 swimmer. Again, a good professional preparation of Yasuhiro Kosecki of Japan. Still waiting for lane 1 to finish, and just look at the difference between Kosecki and Gotsbayar of Mongolia.
It was a strong finish, by the way, from Chao Man of Macau, China, coming through in 3rd place there. His time 2:15.34, and you can see over on the far side with the other swimmers having to remain in the water. It is being polite, but it's also because to leave the water without the permission of the referee before the final swimmer has come to the pads would mean disqualification.
Well, they were given permission there, but as they made their way across, they realized that Gotsbayar was still finishing, so they just sat in lane number 2. But they are very relaxed, just checking that the feel of the swim matches the time that was performed. He'll know what it felt like. He now checks the board to see the time. 2:12.7.
So lane 4, P. Watanabe, world record holder, setting that standard in the early days of 2017, 2:06.67. Back at home in Tokyo. Anton Chupkov of Russia had a bit of a nibble at that mark just a couple of weeks ago in Glasgow when he swam 2:06.80. Watanabe having been the first man to break that 2:07 barrier. So there he is. One of a select number of reigning world record holders on show this week. Sun Yang, of course, we've seen already, having picked up a couple of gold medals. He's the world record holder in the 1500 free.
So again, classic start. The change in the breaststroke ruling has been that with all the swimmers doing a little bit of cheating on the leg kick and the turns and the starts, they decided to change the law and accommodate that. So what happens, as you'll see in the underwater phase, there's the drive, there's a butterfly leg kick at the same time as the hands pull through. Then the legs recover and drive the body to the surface of the water, ready for the next section of the swim.
So what he's saying is they have legitimised that single butterfly leg kick. Had that happened, let's go back to the David Wilkie days, that would have meant immediate disqualification?
Immediate. The pull down of the arms was creating an undulating reaction in the legs, but a lot of swimmers were taking advantage of that, and some were even putting in a couple. Nowadays, because the officials can't actually see what's happening, some of the swimmers we saw, and certainly in Glasgow at the Europeans, that they were putting in a double up and down or undulating leg kick, and that is starting to creep back in. So we'll see what happens to that event. But they're allowed one anyway, and that's made the event a little bit stronger, a little bit faster. Watanabe with company this morning in the form of Yan of China. Coming through in the third 50, Petrashov of Kyrgyzstan is starting to come into this event as well. But it's a comfortable swim from the favourite.
But it is Yan who has the lead, although Watanabe just responding in lane 4. Also going well over there in lane 3 is Petrashov. And the swimmer from Kyrgyzstan, you can see over on the far side, really sensing that he could have a little moment here. Just picking up the tempo, and it is in the end Vayache, the world record holder, who takes the heat. Watanabe, Yan coming through in second, Petrashov in third. Then a very competitive third and final heat there in the men's 200-metre breaststroke. Watanabe's time, 2:11.92.
Excuse me. They knew what they had to do, and you can see how they're able to pitch the swim. 2:11.92, just pipping his compatriot and making sure he's in lane 4. Good timing, and of course helped by the company of Yan. And in the final swim, he would feel Petrashov coming, so he just made sure that he was still going to lead this final heat home.
There was a noticeable raising of the tempo here towards the end. A little bit of personal pride at stake. Despite the fact many of these sportsmen know perfectly well that it has no real bearing on who gets through and who doesn't tonight. They are racing beasts.
But breaststrokers are... The breaststroke itself is a much more sensitive stroke than some of the others, and to get the timing and all the little pieces in the stroke technique correct, that's quite a hard ask at the morning swim.
So the world record holder is the fastest of the qualifiers. Ipei Watanabe, 2:11.92. Yan of China, 2:12.45. Good swim there from Denis Petrashov of Kyrgyzstan. 2:12.89. He's the 4th fastest of the qualifiers.
And you can tell with 2:08s in the bag, there could be quite a drop in the time of the final, especially if it's very, very competitive in 3, 4, 5, and 6 this evening.
So we now have 3 heats of the women's 100 metres butterfly. And when we get to the third of these heats, we'll see again Rikako Akie, who has had a splendid time over the opening 2 days. Games records and 3 gold medals already. Sara Sjöström of Sweden, the world record holder, going back a couple of years to the Olympic Games in Rio. 55.48. The game's record in this discipline set 4 years ago in June, 56.61 by Chen Qingqi. So the fastest entry time coming from Ai Soma of Japan in lane 4.
Yeah, that's the fastest entry time of this heat, not of the event. It was the only 3 heats for this short sprint on the butterfly. Means that we are seeded, so we'll get some racing because they have to go for it in this first heat. There is absolutely no way you can hold back.
So first on the turn is Soma, the Japanese, but really a bat of an eyelid ahead of Lin. So it's Soma in 4, Lin in 5, but certainly the Japanese with the faster turn. And it's Soma by half a length. Also coming through is Kwa of Singapore, but now the Japanese beginning to stretch out.
Nice, tidy stroke, of course, as you would expect from the Japanese. Now head down for the last 3 strokes, checking the pad just as she hit the 5-meter mark. And an excellent finish from Soma.
.59.16, the winning time for the Japanese.
Nothing hard but the swim itself. The dive was long from Soma. Good skills on the turn. You can see how high the shoulders are with the white hats of Lin and Kwan, and how flat Soma is in the stroke. You can see there the face in the water as she went for the pad. You certainly do not want to be breathing in the last 3 or 4 strokes. That can make a big difference when you're going for those medals. And the usual traditional bow to the pool. Good job from the Japanese number 2.
So 59.16, the second swimmer Lin of China, very strong through the opening 50, fading just a little bit there, but 59.94 her time in second place. So this is the lineup for the second of the heats. The Asian number 2, Se-Yun An, or An Se-Yun, I should say, of Korea Republic, going here in lane 4 alongside her teammate Park Yerin. Both of these swimmers bringing entry times in well inside the minute.
Just a little hitch in the organization. What we've got is a little shake-up of the summer, so we just need to watch that we've got the right board. Going out very quickly, Chen of Taipei. Beautiful little stroke there in the white hat and pale costume there. It's nice to see, but getting to the wall first in 27.52. Now, she should come back round about the 30-second mark. Again, nice and tidy. This is An Si-hyun of Korea, and Park, her teammate, the second of the entries next door. So it's a little individual championship going on for Korea in the second of the 3 heats. Again, nice and flat, nice positive swim. Takes the breath and goes for the wall with the last 4 strokes. very good length on the stroke and a nice touch in 58.97. Just a little bit slow on the second half, Martin.
It is still the first 59-second clocking of the morning, but this woman is a real medal candidate here. An Se-yoon of Korea.
Again, you can see how low the arms are for the sprint fly against the high flying arms of Ohashi in her fly leg of the medley. That's the difference. You want to be going horizontal, not taking your time or exaggerating the arm action recovery. You want to get from the end of the pool to the beginning of the next pool as quickly as possible. And that's what Sara Sjöström can do. She's very quick on the recovery. It's not short strokes, it's just very quick strokes in the 100 fly to that world record of 55.48.
So, as perhaps expected, the two Koreans finishing first and second, 58.97 to An Se-yoon. Park Ye-rin coming through in second there, 59.57. So all set now for the appearance of Rikako Ikiya. There in lane 4. 3 gold medals already over the course of the first 2 games and first 2 days of swimming competition at these games. She is the world -- 1 in this event, having swum 56.08 in 2018. And we talk about athletes who may well be across the billboards in Tokyo in a couple of years' time in the run-up to those Olympic Games. Well, this is certainly a prime candidate. She has not put a foot wrong yet here. Winning 2 gold medals last night, barely, 40 minutes apart, with a medal ceremony between. She swam a games record on the opening leg in the relay on the first evening. She certainly is a swimmer who appears to have the Midas touch.
Well, this is the signature event. Pan Pak's winner. Top time in the world, 56.08. One of the few that are expected to perhaps threaten the great Sara Sjöström of Sweden. Taking it out very quickly, of course, on the first 50. You would expect the more powerfully built Zhang at 26.6. Now, that's an interesting split in itself. That's a very fast split for the first 50. I'm sure that Ikiya will just be shaking out the some of the stiffness from last night. 2 good finals, 2 good goals. You can see that there's still a little pride at stake as she quickens up going in. Zhang really struggling at the end to get those arms over after a very good first 50, but she held on just to touch out Ikiya. But it be a different story in tonight's final, that's for sure.
Yes, by some margin, the fastest 2 swims of the morning. Zhang opening up a very impressive lead there at the turn, which Ikiya, who certainly had the momentum coming up the second 50, but you got a sense there that Zhang really was at full tilt. A very measured swim from Ikiya. Those 2 swimmers will occupy lanes 4 and 5 tonight in the final. But, well, if she needed waking up, Rikako Ikiya, that first 50 from Zhang Yufei would have done that.
Look how short Zhang is, though, at the end. The last 3 strokes, a real struggle as she gets to the end of that 50. Partly that's the effort at the 26.6 on the first 50, but it's also because the heavy build, the more powerful athlete, just struggling a little bit.
So there you can see just 2 women going inside the minute, which means, well, just 6 over the course of the 3 heats, broke 60 seconds. And now we'll see the overall qualifiers. There you go, you see. Possible to get through to that final, the swim of 60.39. Chan Kin of Hong Kong, China. So we prepare for the heats here of the final individual event of the morning. We do have relay heats to follow after this, but this is the first of 3 heats in the men's 400-metre freestyle. The 2 reigning world record holders, both on show this morning. Watanabe in the men's 200 breaststroke, and also Sun Yang going in the 400 free, although he's not the world record holder at that discipline. He's the world record holder at the 1500 free. You can see that Sun Yang, though, is the holder of the continental record at 340. Swam that at the Olympic Games in London. And Sun won 2 Olympic titles. So 6 swimmers will go into the water here. Old Batar over on the far side there for Mongolia. Comes in with an entry time of 5:14.
.400 freestyle, one of the most difficult events to train for and to pitch. It's that curious mixture where the pointer goes off speed and onto endurance, but you do need speed, and the modern athlete with the build, the training, the full-time professional lifestyle has become faster and faster at the 400s. Still haven't got down to the 340 world record, but that was a 2009 swim, of course, in the suits from Paul Biederman. He's since retired, of course, from international and competitive swimming. Sun Yang got very close to that, of course, in the London Olympics. But it's all about pacing and the management of energy and speed. It's a really fascinating psychological sports science battle, the 400. You can see here in the first of the swims, Chan of Hong Kong is in on a 4:03.55, but he's showing very much more like a sub-4 minute man. That's the first barrier for the age grouper, is getting under the 4 minute mark. It's still the challenge, but it's a much easier challenge. Now you're talking about many swimmers who go under 350, and it starts to crowd around the 345s. So fascinating swim, and a nice event to finish the individual events this morning. The 400 freestyle. This is the billed as the slower of the 3 heats. Only the last 2 have been seeded to keep the swimmers, the top swimmers, apart and to offer a little bit of edge to the heats towards tonight's finals.
Well, it certainly is a personal time trial, isn't it, for Chan, who turns 22 in a couple of days' time, and he's out there on his own. Good swim from Bol Patar, whose entry time looks like being significantly improved here. Bol Patar lying in second place at the moment, the Mongolian swimmer, but Chan way out on his own.
Again, keeping the stroke nice and long, very light leg kick, breathing every 2 because you You really need the air. He's starting now to go bilateral just as I speak. Commentator's curse, so you can see there. A breath to the left and a breath to the right. Every 3 strokes, that's bilateral breathing. Keeps a balance on the body as he hits the 3/4 mark, 3:03. Now he should come back much faster than the 60 seconds that would take him to his 4:03. So let's hope he's got a little bit of speed, because he hasn't got any competition in this first heat.
So as Chan approaches the wall, there he is. He's got a huge lead at the moment. It's something like 35 or 40 metres. And here he is. Final turn. It's still Bol Batar of Mongolia in second place, but here is Chan. It's been a lone swim.
Strong swim, just outside the top seeds. So he's had to do it from heat 1, a slow heat. And let's get him in here, 3:58. He's still going to be around about the 4:04 mark as he gets into the fight. Just couldn't find any speed at the end of the swim.
So 4:05.80 is Chan's time.
He's swimming the kind of stroke, Martin, that if you said to him, well, we're going to go 10 100s and we're going to go on, you know, 20 seconds rest, he could do them all like that. Maybe not quite at that pace, but just with the stroke, it's just metronomic for him, but just couldn't find any extra in the swim. Again, you'll see a pattern developing with some swimmers where that first 100 is very strong on the way out, then they relax to get into pace. The next 2 100s holding pace, and then in the last 100 really trying to bring it back almost from the turn at the 3 to the end. You want to be developing pace and building speed to get a nice strong finish.
How, from a coaching perspective, do you get more out of a swimmer like that? Because clearly very powerful aerobically.
Yes, but you need to change the stroke a little bit. It's needing a bit more leg kick. Also, he needs to work on a stronger speed in these pace swims. So lots of work on 50s and 100s to get those times down a little bit. And then it's about putting them together to build up your 400 distance. You can see there he's got plenty of energy, he's got plenty of, but just not getting the speed. He seems quite a strongly built swimmer, quite powerful. There you are. Get a chance to spot that.
Well, he looks pretty happy with his morning's work, 4:05.80.
Well, he shouldn't get a second swim, but you might find that that 4:05 maybe just sneaks an outside lane. As I said, the 400 difficult to pitch, so there could be some mistakes in the next 2 heats.
Yes, although I suppose it's worth making the point that the entry times for all the swimmers who swim over these next 2 heats are inside 4 minutes, which gives you an idea where you can pitch your expectations if you maybe are rooting there for the winner of that heat. Ji Xingqi of China here in lane 5. Chinese holding a particularly strong hand in this event. Sun Yang, former Olympic champion. He goes in the 3rd of the 3 heats.
First of the seeded heats. Nice little battle between Ihara and Ji. Ihara, of course, with that excellent lead-off in the 4x2, where the Japanese sprung a surprise against a strong Chinese team. So here's a real individual battle coming up here in the first of the seeded heats.
Yes, Ihara swim last night, although clearly, by definition, relay is very much a team effort, but if there was one leg which really shone out, it was the first leg from Ihara. And here he is in lane 4, putting in the same sort of performance. He's gone out in front. Lee of Korea is alongside him there in lane 3, and G, well, just keeping his powder dry a little bit at the moment there in lane 5, but it will be Ihara who goes to the turn with a half-length advantage.
Well, one of the features to look for is this will be a tighter swim. There'll be 5 or 6 swimmers who will come in at the end and have a race for the finish. You won't have the lone victor that we saw in the slow heat. Ihara, distinctive by that breathing every 2, and it's a long lean on the left arm as he goes for that breath, and then a quick return of the right arm to the front. So it looks as if he's galloping along one-sided, but very efficient under the water. Now moving up, Ji covering, also going well in 7, Nguyen of Vietnam. He swum well this week so far in the first couple of days, and now coming up, as I said, it's building nicely even at the halfway mark.
Yes, Ihara still out in front. Also having a very decent swim here is Nguyen of Vietnam in lane 7, who swum very strongly over that phase between 150 and 200, and you can see there in lane 7 the Vietnamese just moving alongside now Ihara. Ihara showed yesterday in that relay leg how comfortable he is out in front though, but Nguyen would appear to be the fastest man in the water at the moment. Nguyen turns just a bat of an eyelid there ahead of G, and Ihara starting to fade now as the Chinese starts to mount his challenge. He swum a very quiet opening 100 and even 150, but now the Chinese starting to come into his own.
Lim of Singapore quietly moving up. Doesn't look like it in the black hat in lane 6. Ihara just struggling a little bit at 300. He's a specialist 200 man and 4x2, but here he is with that second fastest time from the qualifying entry times. Ji looking nice and strong, relaxed, beautiful long. You can see no air underneath the hands when you get that underwater view. Also moving well into Priwara of Indonesia, a man who was, well, holding on to that game's record in the 800. Here he is at the 4. It's whether or not he has any speed.
Well, there's been a resurgence from Ihara. Look at this, really coming back. Swum a very quiet third quarter. Also coming strongly there on the far side is Lee of Korea, and this is an extremely competitive heat here. And there in lane 3 you can see Lee of Korea coming through, and he's going to take it. G in second place, Ihara there in third. Well, G, the Chinese, just got his timing wrong. That's for that man. Very quiet indeed through the first 300 meters, but clearly all was in hand. That was mighty impressive from the Korean. The winning time, 3:52.80.
It's a good race for the first heat, but 3:52 wouldn't trouble anybody across the globe. But this is all about the moment, and with heats to finals, what's important is getting your hand on the wall in first or second. You certainly don't want to be fourth. That really puts an edge to the rest of this event. Good 400s though. Nicely controlled, nicely pitched. Ji and Ihara on 3:53s. Good swim from Nguyen at 3:54, and Priwara pressing that 3:54 mark. 5 in there, and with a heat to come, again, somebody is going to be disappointed indeed.
So Sun Yang in lane 4. Quite literally overshadows many of his rivals. Coming in at 6'8", you can see him there with the white cap. Moving behind the number 4 block. If you do want to keep a note of the current qualifying times, 7 men at the moment inside 3:58. So Sun Yang here in lane 4. Kasuka Hagino here in lane 5. Can he bounce back from last night's disappointment? So Hagino, who looked all over a winner last night, only to find himself getting caught up the final 50 by his Chinese rival Wang. And in the 200 metres individual medley. But it is Hagino who's gone out in front. Sun Yang alongside him.
Well, on the trampoline of success and failure, Martin, he certainly had a short, successful bounce later on as he went third in the 4x2 gold medal winning team for Japan. And, well, his Victor Wang was in the same leg, and he managed to hold him off. But he was an expected winner in the 200 IM. He's such a talent, but he hasn't really been himself in the medley since the Rio Olympics. And here he is, showing a very strong 400 freestyle in the early stages. But Sun Yang will be, it's like a cat playing with a ball of wool here in the 400. Sun Yang at down at the 340, maybe not at that level here and at this moment in time in the Olympic cycle, but just has the ability to stroke it easily and then move away from his opponents in the last 100. Hagino giving him a good rehearsal, but you can see that Sun Yang does not want to be anywhere else but in lane 4.
We talk so much about Sun Yang's height, 6'8". We all know that, by and large, whatever the sport is, good big uns beat good little uns. But in swimming terms, in very simple language, what are the advantages with those long limbs?
Well, over the whole history of the sport, when you get shorter distances, certainly height and power will matter, providing the technical skill is the same. But you can have a small athlete who is incredibly skillful and who will easily find himself in the mix with the big guys. When it comes to the end of the race, of course, if it's very tight across the field, always that reach is very, very important, because it doesn't look much on the electronic, but visually and in reality, you know, a couple of tenths of a second can mean, you know, from fingertip to elbow of a very tall person, and that is a great distance of margin of difference between two swimmers. Hagino, though, giving Sun Yang a nice workout this morning. The arrowhead fading out there to lane 2, and it's Baklav Jordan, who had a day off coming out of an event yesterday, but the Florida-based man still in the mix here in third place in this final heat. But it's Sun Yang now just starting to bring in the afterburners with 25 to go.
Yes, he's had Hagino pretty much where he wants him throughout, although Hagino has been matching him stroke for stroke until pretty much this point. Look at the race there for third place between lanes 1, 2 and 3, and at the moment Bakla, the Jordanian, coming through there for third place, and that could prove to be crucial when we look at the qualifying times. Just 7 men inside 3:58 coming into this final heat. So Sun Yang 3:49.13, and we can see there actually the first 5 men all inside 3:55.13. So the first 5 from that heat will go through to the final.
That's where they should be pitching, under 3:55. Give themselves a chance at going under 3:50. Sun Yang just really playing the game here of, can see there absolutely no legs in the final 6 strokes. Normally when he wants to really go fast, he will bring in those legs. First couple of days, it's all been about him, his gold medal swims, his victories, and taking charge of these championships.
So we'll see there when we confirm the 8 qualifiers for the final that the leading 5 there will have gone through to tonight's final. Well, there we have it.
One of the advantages of the final heat.
So Sun Yang leading the qualifiers, 3:49.13. Hagino second in that heat, 3:50.67. So we have 9 teams entered for the women's 4x200 metre freestyle relay. So we will only be losing 1. I think it's a fair guess that, particularly when we look at the strong nations, i.e. Japan and China, we will see a fair degree of rotation from this morning through to the final. So 2009, when the world record was set, which so many world records were set throughout that period during the now outlawed suits era. So the Japanese quartet here: Waka Kobori, Ryo Shirai, Chihiro Igarashi, and Saki Mochida.
Four by 200, the longer of the freestyle relays. And this is again where there are 4 little individual swims to put together as a team, not being so tight as the shorter distances. You tend to get a good spread of the teams. So not only if the seeding's correct, you'll get a little arrowhead formation, but it's important to know that with the bigger teams like Japan and China, you could be swimming for a place. There could be 6 or 8 swimmers listed in the team, and you can put any 4 you like for the heats, and they could be swimming for a time, so the coach will then know what will be the strongest team he could put out in the finals.
So do you think the coach will actually go into this not entirely convinced what his leading quartet will be tonight?
Yes, it depends what they've done in training. It depends what they've done in recent competition. Certainly, there won't be a lot of discussion with the swimmers. It will be looking at the times and the performances and putting out the fastest 4. And that's why you can sometimes see quite a strong approach to the swims from especially swimmers in the middle of the relay, where they're looking for that glory place in the final.
But Kobori taking Japan out to quite a significant advantage at the moment. At least 2 body lengths over Korea. It's Kim Jin-ya, who's on the lead-off leg for the Koreans. Just waiting to go out there, Ryo Shirai. There's the handover for Japan. Korea into the water in second place. In lane 3, it's Thailand. And then finally, it's Macau, China, in lane 6. So Shirai coming to the end of her opening 50.
Shirai was one of the swimmers who did the job for the team, getting them from heats to final. You would expect that an easy thing, but she swam hard. But she was dropped from the final quartet that won the gold in the 4x1. Obviously, they brought in Ekia on the lead-off. So here she is again, fighting hard to justify selection. Now, she's a slightly heavier swimmer. She's slightly stockier built. Sits nice and high in the water, so good for 2 and 400. Maybe not so strong for the 100, and that's why she would do the heat swim, but not the final swim. Looking for, you know, height and a little bit of finesse. You can see there, it's a straight arm, it's a workwoman-like swim in the 200. Good solid leg kick. Again, you can see lots of bubbles at the hands there as she flattens the arm on the entry and takes the air in with her. Should be able to stretch that hand in and just get rid of the air very quickly, take in as little as possible. Keep the feel of the stroke, but it's a good, strong 200. And of course, as you would expect, Japan with a huge lead here in the first of the heats.
So Chihiro Igarashi will be on the 3rd leg for Japan. Into the water, that is the midway point. As a coach, when you're selecting not so much your quartet, but the order in which the quartet will go into the water, are there any general maxims? Is it your fastest swimmer on the 1st leg, maybe your 2nd fastest on the home leg? Slightly weaker swimmers, put them in the middle. Is there anything straightforward?
No, you need to see the other teams and how they're swimming and make the best guess. But with the ability now of many nations who can bring in 1 or 2 extra swimmers, that's a much more difficult coaching decision. You would tend to put your fastest swimmer either first or last. And then the strong, steady pace swimmers, maybe the 400 swimmer coming down to the 2, or a very good regular 200 swimmer, they go into the middle. You know, we talk about the engine room of the relay, where really the pace work's done to give the last swimmer either a chance to lead in for the gold medal or to actually catch up on other teams and make a real good attempt at clawing back, maybe say a little bit of a gap.
And I guess there's always the human element. One, you've got within any quartet stronger personalities who may have their own ideas about where they like to swim.
Well, there are, but you know, it's very rare that something like a Japanese coach would be usurped. There is so much respect and authority just inbuilt to the whole system that they have. But a good coach would certainly offer a discussion to maybe your top swimmers, the likes of just coming through now. You can see that nice bent arm underwater. The incoming swimmer must keep the pace. You can see there the outgoing swimmer on this occasion, a step forward to get momentum and then the dive. But it has to be safe, and it can be safe in the 4x2. There's no point in taking any chances. If there are 5 teams coming in at the same time, then you might take a little more risk. But keep it nice and safe. You can see there it's almost a vertical dive in lane 5 from Korea. Still want to get out there and get every 10th and 100th of a second. But Japan, very dominant. Igarashi doing the business in 3, already with a gold medal in the bag as Mochidi anchors.
So Japan coming home with a huge lead into the final 2 lengths of the pool. And it is Mochidi on the anchor leg, coming through in 2nd place at the moment. Korea, the 2 swimmers passing, going in opposite directions, almost at the midpoint there on the in the pool.
And I'm sure some of the swimmers are shaking their head. 10-lane pool, 9 teams entered. Don't know why they couldn't have just made it a straight final. It's not unknown, and it would be at the behest of the referee and the organisers. But I think to swim a 4x200 like this, and it's almost a non-event in terms of competitiveness, it's just a little sad, little disappointing. They couldn't have just thought of it. 9 teams in the final, and you would see this in the final, but it would be cloaked by the urgency and the battle between Japan and China for the gold.
So 8:05 and bits there for the Japanese quartet. And I guess it remains to be seen whether any of those individual performances will have an impact on team selection when we get to the evening. I guess 1 or 2 things that might happen between now and then anyway in the odd individual event might have an influence. The final for this will come at the end of this evening's programme. Korea coming through in 2nd place, their time 8:25.14, so they safely through. Remember, just 1 team over the 2 heats being eliminated. Thailand in 3rd, they're through to the final. And Macau, China, they remain the vulnerable team in terms of qualification for that final.
Just getting a chance to see the takeover, and there's the excellent streamlining. That's the 2nd swimmer, Shirai, and then the final handover between Igarashi and Mochida. Nice, strong finish from Sachi Mochida, and a broad smile. 8:05, plenty to come, of course, from that team, bringing their times down to the 7:50 or sub-7:50 mark, hopefully this evening.
So Mongolia in 2, Singapore in 3, China in 4, Hong Kong, China in 5, Indonesia in 6. The first 4 guaranteed a spot in the final.
The final event of the Day 3 heats program sees this 4x200, 2 heats. Maybe not necessary, but it's the way the organisers have gone, so we're left with looking to see who will qualify in the 4x2. Times entered between 7:44 and 9:20 for Mongolia, but these are either estimated times from 4x200s, or they may well be the national record that is entered, done in the qualifying period, but certainly won't be the times done this morning. Shen Zhuo then going for China in lane 4, the bright pink and black suit, and of course the traditional white hat with the red flag on the side. In 5 for Hong Kong, China. It's Soi Tang, again, one of the long-standing servants of, even as a teenager you saw her coming through, but just putting in an excellent contribution to the record books for Hong Kong, China.
Well, the target for the 5th place team to make the final, the 5th place team in this heat I'm talking about now, on the evidence of the entry times and how the race is progressing in the very early stages, that will be Mongolia. If they can swim inside 9:03.42, it will mean that all 5 teams in this heat go through to the final. That was the finishing time of Macau, China in that first heat, but it's China with Chen leading by a body length from Hong Kong, China to their left. Over on the right, Singapore.
Now each 200 swimmer has some decisions to make. That's why they get team responsibility. A safe takeover, not too hard on the first 50. Good holding pattern in the middle 200s, middle 250s rather, and then bringing back some speed so that all the practices are done on takeover at speed, because you want to have a strong finish. So the outgoing swimmer has to know that the speed of the incoming swimmer is going to be transferred from a training situation and a practice situation to the competition pool. You don't want to have somebody coming in at a very different speed, otherwise you make a mistake in your judgment and you end up disqualification. So let's see how it goes through the Chinese team.
Well, I can tell you that the changeover there for the Mongolian quartet round about 2:18, so certainly their first leg swimmer outside the target, but it is, as you would expect, China out in front by Yan Han.
You were asking about the order of swimmers, so if that's one of their stronger swimmers at 2:18, can do a little arithmetic. 4 times 2:18. There you are, folks. Put your tee down and get your brain going.
Yeah, you're looking more like 9:20, 9:30, aren't you?
Yeah, that's at the fastest, I think. However, they're in here. They've got a chance to build on the 9:20 entry time. But only one chance, I think, as China does what's expected of them. Again, you've got the workhorses being put out in the heat swim. Nice strong leg kick there. You can see beautiful arm entry. Just a little sitting on the right arm as she puts a little catch up into the stroke. Nice balance. Gets a hold of the water very well at the front of the stroke. It's a very, very comfortable stroke. This is Yan Han. Light legs, lots of action down there. You can see it from the wonderful cameras underneath.
Drew, if we look
builds to the finish so that the outgoing swimmer gets good information.
Drew, if we look back over the last 2 or 3 decades or so, for obvious reasons, the evolution of Chinese sport has been quite rapid. In the early days of Chinese swimming, when they came back into Olympic competition, many stories about how they drew their coaching talent beyond Chinese borders. Are they rather more self-sufficient these days?
Well, they have used many international coaches at different times. They've also allowed swimmers to go to other coaches. Sun Yang himself went to Dennis Cottrell in Australia, the coach to Grant Hackett, and did a lot of work down there. So they're being a bit more relaxed, not so tough on their athletes in terms of being exposed to perhaps Western thinking and Western ideas. And they have invited many into the camp. But in the early days after, you know, the Chinese were rather out of it, they brought in some not so well-liked coaches who would start them off on what you call the development program. But I think that's all cleared now, and some of the Chinese coaches are top in the world. And where they are very good is in the sports science section. They really are interested and able in that facet of the overall coaching program of athletes in sport.
And throughout that period, the development of Chinese sport was shrouded in apparently some sort of secrecy. Is it all rather more open these days?
No, you get very little information. You know, even in the best websites, it's hard to get the information as Zhang gets in for her 200 freestyle leg. Wu doing a good job getting them there. Nice fast 29.8 finish. Now Zhang Yuhan completing this very dominant victory. Good race for second place between Singapore and Hong Kong, China, but it's some 30 meters behind the leaders in this final heat. I would like to see a rule brought in, Martin, that when you enter a top-class international competition, no matter what the sport, you have to give a full biography. It should be mandatory with your entry so that media, spectators get the best information. Often you go on and what you find is that Zhang Yang is a member of the Chinese swimming team and swimming in the 4x200 freestyle relay. Well, that ain't much to go on, is it? But, hey, who am I? It'll be different when I'm in charge, I think.
Yes, it certainly will. Zhang Guan on this final leg for China. A lone swim, out on her own, and this all being set up for what will be a quite delicious head-to-head in tonight's final. Japan against China, it has been the theme. 7 gold medals each over the course of the first 2 days. China with more medals, picked up 20 medals over the course of those opening 2 days, but by virtue of having had more silvers, Japan are top of the medal table. That's how close it is between these two great swimming nations. And we'll round off this morning's program with a dominant performance from the Chinese relay squad, but lurking in the final, yep, you've guessed it, the Japanese. Now, we don't know obviously at the moment quite what the lineups will be for that final. They have to resolve those themselves, but one thing we can be certain on is just how good that final's going to be. Coming in for second place, a long, long way behind Singapore. They will go through to the final. Hong Kong, China coming through in third. Indonesia are there in fourth.
That's good for the crowd participation.
They will be through to the final tonight. So we are just now waiting for the Mongolians, who are not going to get inside that time set by Macau, China of 9:03.42. So it is Mongolia who will be eliminated as their final swimmer. Sidoanti comes into the final 35 meters or so.
Well, it's a brave performance from the team. The clock ticking over still, of course.
Yes, I beg your pardon. It's Erdeen on the final leg for the Mongolian quartet. And they come in there in last place in that heat. And despite the great efforts made, they will be eliminated.
Well, I wonder which of the four will get the baton at some stage in the 4x2 tonight, as the results from Heat 2 are confirmed.
So 8:01.41, and you can see from the summary here, the Chinese the fastest of the qualifiers, but really don't read anything into that other than the fact it is poised to be yet another matchup between China and Japan in the final. So let's look back on a summary of what we've been watching over the course of the last 2 hours here inside the GBK Aquatic Centre. We got underway with heats of the women's 50-metre backstroke. China dominant there, 1 and 2.
Yeah, but the top seed, Fu, a little surprised to be in second place, perhaps.
Men's 50-metre freestyle. This was certainly the busiest event of the morning. The ultimate splash and dash. Nakamura, there of Japan, coming into the race perhaps as the dominant force, but down there in fourth.
In the medley, well, it was just a shakeout swim for the top swimmers. Ohashi especially with that 4:42. She is a 4:30 swimmer this year.
Men's 200-metre breaststroke. The side of the world record holder. Had to work quite hard up the last 50, but he comes through as the fastest qualifier. Ipei Watanabe.
They all had to work quite hard to get their first breaststroke pitched properly. The women's 100 fly. Ikia just keeping it nice and cool. Zhang, a very fast first 50, just struggling at the end of that 100.
Well, Sun Yang's bid for 5 gold medals at these games may well have run aground last night in the relay, but no problems here in the heats of the men's 400 free. Kosuke Hagino caught in the final stages of the medley last night. Well, putting in a good swim this morning.
The women's 4x2, well, this was just a little training performance or swimming for your place in the case of maybe a couple of the Japanese and Chinese swimmers. But they're going to be the strong teams and go down to the 750s this evening. Let's hope it's a good race, because I don't think any of the other teams are going to be in the final challenge.
Well, the morning certainly whets the appetite for the final session tonight. What particularly caught your attention tonight with this morning with a view to tonight?
Well, the sprint 50s are always going to be good. It's going to be very, very tight, especially on the freestylers. But I like the 400, it's building nicely. I think Sun Yang on paper is just an outstanding favourite. But, well, these skills will come back this evening. You see the freestylers setting off, and a really strong swim from Kade there to get himself into tonight's final. Nakamura possibly with a very rusty swim, and that's what happens with the top freestylers. That's Zhang on the butterfly, and there a very excellent backstroke technique coming again in the medley. The breaststrokers, the shootout, Watanabe looking a little bit cumbersome, certainly not on world record swim, but that could be a very, very interesting final this evening, Martin.
So that's it from this morning in the pool. We've got a terrific night, 7 more finals. Remember, it's 7 golds apiece at the moment between Japan and China. Japan are nominally top of the medals table on the strength of having collected more silvers, but those
AIS Play ความบันเทิงระดับโลกทุกที่ทุกเวลา
ส่งต่อความมั่นใจสู้ไปด้วยกันนะครับ